Hello everybody and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing another palette redesign video. I haven't done one of these in such a long time. It has been a while, I feel like. Probably hasn't, but I feel like it has. And today we're going to be focusing on the new Lion King collection. Now, this is a collaboration between Luminous, Sir John, which happens to be, or who happens to be Beyonce's makeup artist, and Disney, and it's all to promote the new Disney live action movie, which actually does feature Beyonce, I believe, but this is the eyeshadow palette that was featured in that collection. There was a whole bunch of stuff in that collection, actually. All that I have mentioned in last week's Will I Buy It, or rather this week's Will I Buy It, but there's a whole bunch of stuff in the collection, and for the most part I really did like the collection. The packaging was like spot on, gorgeous. The face products look pretty interesting. The lip products look really interesting as well. However, the eyeshadow palette, in my personal opinion, left much to be desired. And I was up late last night and I was looking at this and I decided that it would be time, that it would be a good idea to redesign it. And as a result, I have redesigned, or I have tweaked, almost every single color in the collection. Now, I did try to stay true to what I think the movie is gonna be. I tried to stay true to the original theme of the palette. You will notice that my redesign actually looks quite similar to the previous palette, the original palette, the existing palette, but I did tweak some things. I did add a lot more color, and I will explain all my reasoning in just a moment. This is the old palette, and this is the redesigned, revamped palette that I created, my fantasy Lion King palette, if you will. This palette is called I Can't Wait to Be Queen, which I think it's a good name. I think it's a good name. I think it's fun. I think it's like a little bit, it is playing off of the I Can't Wait to Be King song from the original movie, which I like. But yeah, anyway, let's just get into the shadows. I will be showing you guys and taking you through each and every single shade in this palette, and there are 12, so let's just get into it. By the way, disclaimer, I feel like I have to do disclaimers when it comes to a video like this. I am not trying to bash on Sir John, Beyonce, Luminous, Disney, anybody in this video. I'm just trying to share with you guys my own personal opinion. You will still be able to buy the original palette if it is your heart's desire. I'm just presenting an alternate opinion, and this is done in no way, shape, or form out of negativity. I just want to give you guys my perspective. So yes, anyway, that disclaimer is finished, but I feel like I have to do it. Let's just get into the actual video. I'm so excited. First off, let's talk about this shade right here, which is called Mufasa. Now, Mufasa is a beautiful looking, really metallic looking brown color, and I decided to leave it the way it was because I do feel that the people that are going to be buying this palette are not all like colorful nerds like me, and I wanted to include some of the original shades in the palette because I don't want to make this palette non-appealing to a whole bunch of people. I want to make this palette appealing to somebody who might like some neutrals every now and then. But yeah, I decided to leave Mufasa the way it was. But moving on, I want to talk about Zazu. Now, Zazu, in my mind, was a color that started out really pretty, but could have been executed a little bit more flamboyantly, in my personal opinion. So what I decided to do is I decided to up the intensity of that blue shade within the pan, and I also decided to up the intensity of the saturation. So essentially you have a color that is very close to the original shade in the palette, but I felt like the original was a little bit dusty almost. It was a little bit lackluster, and I wanted a blue that was very vivid that would just look fantastic. So that was the kind of blue that I came up with. I just tweaked the original color. I just upped the saturation a little bit. I intensified the blue, but this is essentially a revamped version of the original shade. Next up, I do want to talk about the Meadows. Now, this is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful green color. That's what it was originally. It was such a pretty color, but I looked at it and I just felt like I wanted more. Like the previous blue color, I wanted to just up the color a little bit. I wanted to up the saturation. I wanted to make it a little bit more greenish blue. I just wanted to make it more intense, and I did that, and this is the way the color turned out. It is still very similar to the original shade, however, in my opinion, it is a few steps extra, and therefore I actually like it a lot better. I mean, my philosophy with color is that it's better in my mind to work with colors that are more vibrant, that are more like vivid, than to work with colors that are a little bit lackluster. Because if you're going to work with a color that is lackluster, not as bright, not as vivid, it's okay, I guess, but might as well go to neutrals, I guess. My thing is, I would rather go all out with color than to just take baby steps, but that's just my personal opinion. Of course, everyone has their own, but my thing is, with this particular color, it was such a beautiful emerald, but I really wanted to make it that a little bit more saturated, and that's what ended up happening. Then, I really want to talk about Sire. This could have been a beautiful purple, but I feel that this purple, like, at least in this photo, like, it looks almost gray, and I do not like that. I'm sorry, but whenever I want to see a purple, I want to see a purple. So what I did is I took this shade. This is a beautiful, like, metallic looking shade. I upped the saturation. I added more red to it, and I made it into something that I would describe as a purple color. And in my redesign, I actually did include several purple shades, and I did include a shade with a purple undertone, which you will see later on. I definitely do feel that purple is the color of royalty, and with the name, I can't wait to be queen, I felt that purple was a very fitting color to include in the palette. I did not want to make this a purple palette completely. I just wanted to include a few touches of purple, and I felt like this was an opportunity to introduce a really beautiful, hopefully really flattering, reddish toned purple color that I absolutely fell in love with. Then moving on, I have Nala. When I did include this video in my Will About for this week, I believe Gold Star Work, also known as Laura, commented that there just wasn't any yellow in the palette, and she made a comment about that, and I was actually like, I thought that that was a terrific point, so I decided to really make it one of my objectives with this redesign to add more yellowy kind of gold colors into the palette. And Nala was a color that I really wanted to do this with. I decided to basically transform Nala into this uber metallic, perhaps slightly sparkly, I don't know, gold color. And I wanted it to be a gold color with a reddish undertone. I did not want this particular shade to be quite cold. I wanted it to be a very warming, a very reddish undertone type gold. And yes, you do see a lot of like reddish type purpley undertones throughout this palette, throughout this redesign, but this particular color I see as being a super saturated, super beautiful, buttery gold, and I felt like that was a little bit more appropriate, especially since I believe Nala is a lion, so I feel like lions should have gold eyeshadows. There you go. The next color is called King. I don't know about you, but whenever I think of the name King for a shade name, I don't know why that would be a taupe transition color. That's just my opinion. So I decided to make King a purple. Now, this is a matte purple. Unlike the previous purple that we have mentioned in this video, this particular purple has a little bit more of a blue undertone. It is still quite a red tone purple, but it is, in my mind, quite blue as well. This is, I would say, a violet, and this, I see that this as being a super vibrant, super rich, buttery matte shade. Next color is called Pride Rock. Now, Pride Rock originally was a very chocolatey brown tone, which does make sense because it's literally called Pride Rock. But I felt that when I was designing this palette and when I was looking at Pride Rock, I felt that I wanted to see a neutral brown color that could be worn with a lot of the newer colorful shades in my redesign, and I also wanted to see a neutral brown color that could perhaps be used to smoke out certain eye looks, because there are so many really vivid tones in this redesign that I wanted to add something that would be able to smoke out and in some ways neutralize a lot of makeup looks, because I feel that a terrific way to wear something like a purple or a green metallic is by popping it into the center of the lid and just applying some really dark matte tones to the outer corner to really just intensify and give it some depth. So with that in mind, I wanted to make Pride Rock a touch darker and with a purplish undertone. So this is what ended up happening. And then the color next to that is called African Clay. I decided to leave it alone. I decided to leave it the way it was. Would I wear this color? No. But do I think that this color looks beautiful with the palette? Yes, and I also feel like it would appeal to neutral lovers. And I think that leaving this color as a neutral brown really makes it, I think, a good color to pair with the new revamped version of Pride Rock, because you could essentially make a very neutral but a little bit more of a dramatic smoky eye with those two shades. Then moving on to the bottom row, I have Safari Khaki. With this shade, I wanted to create something that was not a transition color, because I don't like transition colors. I feel like transition colors are overdone, overplayed, overemphasized, just overrated. I wanted something a little bit different, and I wanted to play on the safari sort of theme as well of the color of the shade name. So I decided to make this like a olivey greenish type of safari shade. Basically, I took the original safari color, I added more green to it, more yellow, a little bit more yellow, not a lot, and I slightly upped the saturation to create essentially a mid-tone yellowy green color. And I feel that this, I think, is a better version, in my opinion, of the shade in general. Next is Simba. Now, I felt like I wanted to maybe like tie in Simba and Nala together. I wanted to make them quite similar, but at the same time, I did not want to include two very similar shades in this palette. Now, Simba is, in my mind, a gold color, okay, but it is more yellow than it is gold. It is a metallic yellow without being gold metallic. It is pretty much if you took like a really like sunny egg, made it metallic, and put it in a palette, basically. And that's what I wanted Simba to be. I felt like this would be so flattering, so beautiful all over the lid. Maybe smoke it out with a little bit of Pride Rock if you want to go for something warmer. Maybe smoke it out with a little bit of African Clay for a daytime look, I guess, if you're looking for like a neutral slash colorful look. Or go all out and include it with some of the greens in this palette. So I felt like Simba, this like revamped version of Simba, was such like a really fun shade to have in this palette. It was kind of playing off of the original color, but I felt like I wanted to revamp it. Next is the color Wisdom. Now, Wisdom, like in general, it was essentially a warm tone transition taupey color, and I was just completely bored out of my mind. So I decided to basically make Wisdom a red color. And yes, this is a really bright red. It is a really like ruby kind of red. And I felt like these last three colors, I wanted to sort of play off of the African skies in the cartoon. This was something that I mentioned in my Will I Buy It. I felt like I wanted some of the shades in this palette to be a little bit more warm, a little bit more like just fiery, because there are like several scenes in the cartoon, and I know that this palette is meant to promote the live action, but I'm just talking about the cartoon just for a second. Hear me out. I felt like there were so many different scenes in that movie in which you saw like the brilliant emphasis on the sky, on the fiery tones, on just the warmth, the vivid nature of that entire color palette. And I wanted to include that in this eyeshadow palette right here. And I felt that red is not only a really fun color, but it is also a color that you can basically use to represent that like fire. You know, I loved that, and I wanted to include it in the palette. Then last but not least, I have Landscape, which is a color that I also wanted to make sort of like sunset, sunrise themed, But more than that, I wanted to make landscape a color that could be supported by and could be used with other shades in the palette. I look at landscape as being a really wearable, like when I say wearable, I know it's a really ambiguous term, but I look at landscape as being a really just like easy color to wear for neutral lovers, essentially. A color like this is, in my mind, very flattering on so many people, and this is a metallic as well, so I feel like this would be like a beautiful, like just coppery color on the lid, and I just loved how it looked with the gold as well as the red in the palette. So that is the end of my like redesign video, my video explaining all of these different colors to you guys. Let me know what you think of my redesign. Let me know if you like it, if you like the older palette better, if you like this new palette. Give me your thoughts down below. Any comments, any opinions would be appreciated. I will get back to you, of course. But thank you so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye, guys.